I'm with Ross Staines just below Alice Springs, and the Staines family run 3 stations: De Rose Hill, Lindavale and Mount Ebenezer. Their family are 4th generation rangeland pastoral grazers. They're caring for the environment and they're doing some really intelligent things to bring back some country that was depleted, increase their performance and productivity, but also kick fantastic goals for the environment. Ross, how are you, mate?
Good, Tim. Yourself?
You are doing some stuff that is really suited to this environment. You've played around with a few things and you've found a recipe that works.
Yes,
and
that's right.
My goodness, have a look out there. It's certainly working.
Yeah, well, it's great to see some reward for all the effort we've put in, and it's and you know, having a really positive impact on the environment and our business as well. It's really helped.
You can make mistakes out here, and you can make mistakes that have long-lasting and dramatic impacts really easily, because it's quite fragile country, isn't it?
Yeah, so where we're standing right now is some of our more productive country, but it's definitely some more of our fragile country as well. So you can make a wrong turn really easily when the way you manage it.
Let's go and have a look at what happens when you make a wrong turn and talk us through that. And then I'm so excited, you're going to show us some really simple things that you're doing to bring that country back remarkably quickly.
Yeah, that's right. We've been looking for something that's going to really give us bang for buck. We're talking about really large areas here. So something, intervention that we can use that's going to give large scale impact.
So let's have a look at the first of 3 problems that we're going to have a look at today, and then the solutions. You've got Sodic soil that's been had the vegetation taken off through overgrazing. It's become eroded. It seems like there's no way back. Let's go and have a look at what it looks like.
Sounds good.
Well, Ross, this is certainly bare, crusty soil, isn't it? Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on here?
Well, as you can see, this is down to the subsoil. The topsoil is completely removed. We're down to bare stone, bit of ironstone and subsoil. There's no topsoil barely at all here. It's all been washed away and blown away in wind.
Now, there is an early colonising plant here. Can you tell me a little bit about this plant?
So that's twin leaf. That is not palatable, in fact poisonous to livestock, but it's not really a problem to have it in the landscape if you've got other things for the cattle to eat. But it is an early coloniser, so it's starting to establish in areas where there's a little bit of topsoil starting to form.
So plants, once again, creating topsoil wherever they go, even if they're a non-palatable poisonous species.
Absolutely, yeah. Any vegetation to begin with is a good start, and then you can build from that.
Now this soil, and forgive me if I'm wrong and I stand to be corrected, but it looks a bit sodic. We've got quite a bit of crusting on the top. I imagine when it rains, not much of the water gets in, it probably flows off.
This country here, one of the biggest issues we have once you lose that topsoil and vegetation is hydration. The water will just sheet off this. There's a fair bit of slope to this country as well, which doesn't help. So if you get rain here and your soil looks like this, you're going to get very minimal impact from that water.
Now, people might look at this and think, well, that soil's permanently ruined, but you have brought soil like this back to high functionality within only 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, we were thinking about how can we get water into a large amount of land like where we're standing here. You know, what's cost effective? And so we used a few different things. We mucked around, and then we did some deep ripping and found it had a huge impact in a really short amount of time.
Let's go and have a look at the deep ripping you did. I'm keen to find out where you rip, why you rip and how you rip. And I'm also keen, you're a bit of a plants guy, I'm also keen to see what sort of plants are colonising your rip zone within 4 years. Well, Ross, what a remarkable transformation.
Yeah, it's great to see. We've got all these plants here now that have established, and not only that, you can see the topsoil establishing, and the ironstone here is disappearing.
Let's start with the soil, mate. People often say that you can't build topsoil.
Well, I think the evidence here shows contrary to that. And to be honest, a lot of this was built during dry times when you had a lot of soil movement. But you can see the amount of topsoil here that's that's established. Over here we've got ironstone, the twin leaf that we were looking at before.
Yes.
And now back here where we've ripped, you know, huge amounts of topsoil. We've got highly palatable species starting to come up here.
Yes.
We've got a mixture of sort of annual and perennial grasses coming up, and they have pushed out the early colonising twin leaf. There's none of it here, as you can see.
Yeah.
Instead, we've got highly palatable species, really good feed, and over time, it just continues to evolve the biodiversity in these rip lines.
And you can see this soil, I mean, it's got some structure to it now. I just picked it up and I just started to break it apart in my hands. But that structure, being out here in the desert with this sort of Sodic clay type soil, it's quite fragile, isn't it? Because if you disturb it too much, you destroy it. So your method has been minimal disturbance and just encouraging the plants to recolonise and do the work for you.
Absolutely, and we're not stopping all the water. We're allowing some to seep in these rip lines, but then it continues on down the slope and then you know, into each rip line, and each area seems to be, you know, having a very similar impact.
Because we're going to get to that later, but your firm belief is that it's really important to not stop water flowing in this country.
Yeah, you want to slow it, allow it to seep in, but you don't want to be stopping it and causing water shadows or rain shadows where, you know, you've got areas of soil that are not getting any moisture at all.
Let's have a look at some of these plants, mate, and I want you to tell me the story that's happening and evolving here.
So here we've got a bit of a young native oat grass coming up. There's another one over here. As you can see here, this is an older native oat grass that's left a base there, and that allows grasses in future generations to come up and establish.
So it's doing a job even when it's dead?
Absolutely, it has a really crucial role to play as far as holding the soil together long after the plant itself's died. Here we've got a Scarolina. This is a C3, some herbage that comes up when we get winter rain like this, highly palatable. Over here, we've got some wild tomato. I think it's a good example that while a plant like this might not be useful for grazing, it's doing its role as far as bringing the soil health back and holding things together, helping the soil biology.
And that's another really important thing too, isn't it, Ross? You're recognising that although a plant might not be useful to your business, it's actually really useful to the environment that it's holding together, and it's also bringing a whole heap of new microbes to the soil that might be specific to this plant.
Yeah, absolutely. I think biodiversity is the key, and not having monocultures, it's just another example of a healthy land system. Over here we have a really good example of a perennial grass. This is umbrella grass or finger panic. Highly palatable, key indicator species, and as you can see, it's doing a really good job of holding the soil together around it and allowing other plants like native oat grass to establish as well. Over here we've got some buckbush. This was one of the first things to establish when we first did the ripping. As you can see now, it's actually establishing outside the ripping lines and sort of been pushed out by the grasses. And it is palatable. It isn't long-lived, but it, again, an early colonizer and is one of those things that really helps establish that topsoil. Now, Tim, we'll throw a bit of controversy in just to keep everyone excited. We've got some buffel grass here. And as you can see, it's another bit of biodiversity. There's no monoculture, but it's doing another really good job holding everything together. You can see some earlier grasses down here that have been grazed. And it's allowing competition. There's a young one coming up there, but in no way have we got a monoculture of buffel here.
So Ross, with the buffel grass, I've noticed when I've gone into a few of the national parks around up this way, Ayers Rock and the Olgas and various other places like that, the buffel grass is really taking over and it's becoming a monoculture. But when I come out into the grazing areas, yeah, that's not so much the case. You reckon grazing is an important tool?
Absolutely. Buffel grass is critical for us. The cattle keep it in check. They don't allow it to establish in monocultures like you do in national parks and these ungrazed areas.
Yep.
But something like this is the first thing that responds after rain. It allows the cattle to have something to eat really quickly.
And it keeps them off the native grasses.
And it allows the native grasses to get started and come up and go to head before they have any real grazing impact on them.
So you've had some of this buffel grass feed tested and it's come back quite positive for a grazing operation.
Yes, we've had some buffel tested, similar to the grass down there, the oat grass. We had them tested side by side in the lab down in South Australia and they came out almost identical in every way. So it shows that buffel is a really valuable feed source and can be, as we can see here, part of a very healthy landscape.
And it can be managed, most importantly, with good quality and good practice rangeland grazing. And we're going to get to talk about that shortly, because you can get grazing very wrong out here and you can get it very right.
Absolutely, and it's a fine balance, that's for sure.
Well, Ross, we can see the story that you were telling me off camera, where the vegetation from this ripline is nearly intersecting the vegetation from this ripline. Your riplines are a fair way apart, a couple of metres apart, but they're closing it together.
That's right. Over time, we're seeing that vegetation close up between the riplines as the topsoil establishes further and further out. And we've got a very narrow corridor here now between the riplines where there isn't much in the way of perennial and highly palatable grasses.
So show me what's going on here, mate.
So here we've got a footprint from, it must have happened when during the recent rains, and that there will definitely aid in the future with that moisture getting back into the soil and also just accumulating topsoil.
So the cattle are leaving imprints behind that water's collecting in.
That's right. Part of the inspiration for the ripping and our thinking when we started doing it was actually looking at cattle pads and how they could have a real impact on allowing vegetation to establish on scarred land.
So you observed vegetation growing preferentially where there were cattle pads.
That's right.
You thought, how can we replicate that across the landscape easily?
And that was exactly our thinking.
And have a look at the result.
Yeah, it's amazing. We couldn't be happier.
So Ross, the re-establishment of plants and having a living landscape is now having an impact on the water as it flows across the landscape as well. We can see here that some topsoil's being deposited between the rip lines that plants are colonising as well.
That's right. You can see how much topsoil's accumulated here. Now this is no longer following the rip lines. It seems to be establishing itself. We've got huge amounts of topsoil starting to establish their own little areas of, biodiversity and it's really good to see, because unlike some of the areas up higher there, you can see here, you can't see where the rip lines even were anymore.
So Ross, the rip lines are having a massive effect. How many square kilometres of country do you estimate that you've been able to rehabilitate so far using these?
I would say we've roughly done 300 to 400 square kilometres of rehabilitation using this technique.
In 4 to 5 years?
Yes, and a lot of that was probably done over only a 6 to 7 month period where we were really intensely doing it. Labour's probably one of the challenges there. If we could have someone going full-time on a grader, I think it would just about pay for itself, but having the labour is a challenge out here. What we're trying to do here is get as much done in as quick a time as possible. So for that reason, we've come up with this technique. We haven't had the land surveyed at all, but we are ripping with the contours of the landscape.
And it's quite an undulating landscape out here, isn't it? You've got some ranges at the back of your property that concentrate a lot of water flow across the property. and you're finding those undulations?
Yeah, and I think the undulating nature of this area is really what adds to the fragility of it. So we are trying to allow rehydration of the soil, but not divert the flow of the water and start to cause erosion.
Because as soon as you concentrate water in this landscape, you've got erosion problems, haven't you?
Absolutely, and we can see that on some of the roads that we have on the place, where an unintended consequence of the way the roads were constructed is huge amounts of erosion and changing the flow of the water and not allowing it to shed across the entire landscape.
So you're being sensitive to the landscape even when you build infrastructure like roads. Can we go and have a look now at a road that's failed, talk about why it's failed, and then have a look at one of your newer roads and talk about why that's holding it up and what the strategies are in this fragile landscape for building roadways?
Let's go have a look.
Now Ross, we keep talking about the fragility of this landscape, and there's nothing that emphasises the fragility of the landscape more than what happens when tracks and roads are constructed without an understanding of how this country works. And we're standing in what looks to me to be a creek, but it's not.
Yeah, this is a man-made creek, so this is what happens when you don't construct a road in the right way.
So talk me through the process of how this road was constructed and maintained and why that was a problem.
So what's happened here is, as the road has been graded over time, dirt has been consistently pulled from the centre and pushed out, essentially creating a trench,
Right.
which obviously has diverted all the water and eventually become a creek. We're also channeling water that would be otherwise hydrating the landscape, and it's running off into waterways and creating huge areas of erosion.
So in this sort of country, you would encourage people, rather than running a cut and then throwing from either side of that cut to build your track, you would encourage people to do opposite cuts and keep rethrowing across the country until you get your track formed.
Yeah, each time we're grading, we're pulling the dirt from the opposite side to the previous grade, so that you are reusing that dirt, forming a road, but not creating a trench. You're not going down. You are essentially shaping a road that's not impeding the water flow in any major way.
Well, Ross, this story's got everything now. We've even now got bulldozers being used to remediate the environment. We've got a wall boy here, and this is solving the problem of the old track.
Yeah, when you have significant areas of erosion, as we have here, you've got to do a significant amount of infrastructure to reverse that. So we've got quite a big bank here behind us, and we've got a series of these along this old road to stop that water flowing down the road and try and divert it back off to its natural course.
And on the upstream side of this roadway come creek, we've got Buffle acting positively in the environment once more.
Absolutely. Buffle loves soil disturbance and really colonises areas where you've previously had soil disturbance and erosion.
Yep.
And now you can see it's holding the soil together, as well as this has been pretty heavily grazed. It's given a great source of feed for the cattle, and they will help knock down those gully heads with their hooves as well when they're coming in and grazing those areas. Yeah.
So livestock are working within this remediation program as well. They're going to help even out the ground, create those little indents for water, and dare I say, get an early coloniser like Buffle under control and allow other plants to come through?
Yeah, that should allow diversity throughout the rest of the landscape. You've got an area that the cattle are going to concentrate their grazing on, but hopefully in a way that's going to positively impact. So buffle grass is the only tool we have that we can use in a high impact area like this to really have an impact and bring those gully heads under control.
So Ross, literally this is one you prepared earlier. This is an example of a good station track or road for you.
Well, I think the key we've got here is this is a good example of minimal impact with a road that's being used quite a lot. We are not impeding the water flow here at all. So for this fragile landscape where we are right here, it's allowing the water to sheet across. It's not following the road. It's going across and it's allowing it to rehydrate, especially in the rip lines that we have here on the other side, rather than following the road and causing erosion.
Now for those of us down south, these are perhaps a little bit unfamiliar. We've got a trap gate here, or a spear trap.
Yes, that's right, and this is how we control our cattle as far as when we want to muster, or when we want to get our cattle and move them on to another spot. Within a few days we can have a whole mob or everything in the paddock trapped into a small night paddock that's easily mustered, loaded onto a truck, and then we can move them to wherever we want them next.
Between the two stations of Lindavale and Mount Ebenezer, you've got over 100 watering points, and they're all yarded.
Yeah, every time our cattle have a drink, they have to go through one of these.
This is the outdoor, by the way.
This is the out trap.
Yep,
there's one to go in over there.
Yep.
If we want to trap the cattle, all we have to do is that there. That's right, and we just open the gate into the small paddock over there, which has got enough feed for a few days. We can trap them into there, and then that's easily mustered with a lot of labour efficiency.
Now people down south will talk about rotational grazing. That's not done up here because the rainfall is so infrequent and hard to predict. Instead, you manage your grazing pressure by rainfall event.
Exactly, so a paddock like this, which is in our more fragile country, we will spell it after it's been grazed, and rather than a prescribed time, we're waiting for a significant rainfall event, allowing that grass to grow, go to seed, before we'll put cattle back in again.
And with high labour efficiency and very low stress on the cattle, you can actually move them from water point to water point quite easily in just a couple of days.
That's right, and all our cattle are well trained when it comes to going on and off trucks, so it's usually a pretty smooth process.
And you're using stress-free stockmanship skills as well, so every time they're coming into the yards, they don't have a fear factor, do they? In fact, they almost, you could say, enjoy the experience.
Absolutely, our cattle are, I would say, attracted to yards and infrastructure, and you know, always very interested in what's happening, and it allows, again, labour efficiency, and it looks after the cattle, looks after the people, and allows us to move them easily from spot to spot.
And so they become a precise grazing management tool rather than an extensive set stock tool.
Exactly, and we manage different country in different ways, but particularly fragile country like this, we are making sure that we're giving it a good spell each time between putting cattle on it.
So guys, if you're intrigued by this sort of story, make sure you hit the little subscribe button down there and give it a thumbs up. And if you want to find out more about these fantastic stations out here in Alice Springs, get onto the Northern Territory Cattlemen's Association or the Rangeland Pastoralists Association. Links are in the description. See you next week with something else. Thank you very much, Ross. It's been an absolute pleasure out here, mate.
No problem, Tim. Thanks for coming out.
Thoroughly inspired. Now, Ross, you've also done some contours on the property as well with some funding that you had about 20 years ago. And the contours are working. They're having a good positive impact on the property, but the issue's cost.
Exactly. Contours are very effective, but they are not necessarily cost effective when you're talking about hundreds of square kilometres that you want to do work on. Something like ripping, we can do, you can rip hundreds of kilometres in a week, but to do something like this, you know, you're talking a week's work to do quite a small area.
So the message with all of this is work with your contours, rehydrate your land, slow the flow of water across your land and get it to go into the soil, and use plants as the remediation.
Absolutely, plants and animals, and I think there's lots of different techniques, and you just got to find something that's going to work for your system and the amount of area that you have to work with.